Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Aces High, and today we're going to be continuing our Caesar Roman type series. I decided to swap over and just see how you guys like a different channel a little better. I talked to some of my longtime viewers, and they said that the video by a different channel, Kings and Generals, it titled Caesar versus, oh god, I'm horrible with names, Ariovistus, the Battle of Vosges or Vosges, something like that. 58 BC is actually going to be the video by Kings in General that would take place after yesterday's video. So basically, we're going to have a difference in channels, and we're going to see which one you guys like better. I'm just excited to learn about the Roman history, but if one channel looks a little better and explains a little better, then I'm in. So I'm just going to give both of them a try, and let me know which one you guys like better. That being said, I'm actually really excited about this video, and I'm just going to sit back, shut up, and let's get started. Before that, if you guys haven't subscribed, hit that sub button. I am trying to hit 1,000 subs, and y'all help me out. You really do. Anyway, let's get started.
While Caesar had been busy fighting the Helvetii at the Battle of Bibracte, elsewhere in Gaul a new threat had emerged. The Suebi, a fiercely warlike Germanic people who had recently crossed the Rhine, were now looking to establish a new homeland in Gaul. These fierce warriors and their leader, Ariovistus, would challenge the Roman legions and provide Caesar with another opportunity to prove his mettle. But before we start our video, we would like to thank our sponsor, Wix. Wix, like Wix, allows us to have clicking on the link in the description or by entering the URL wix.com/kings-and-generals. The Suebi, led by their king, Ariovistus, had first arrived in Gaul in 63 BC as mercenaries for the Sequani and Averni in their war against the Aedui, a Roman ally. The 15,000 warriors that Ariovistus initially brought proved decisive, helping to secure a crucial victory over the Aedui at the Battle of Magito Briga, which forced the Aedui to become a tributary to the Sequani. In response to this, the Aedui sent an envoy, Diviciacus, to ask Rome for help, but the Republic was still recovering from the political shock of the Catiline conspiracy and was distracted by an Allobroges revolt. The governor of Transalpine Gaul was ordered to help Rome's Gallic allies when possible, and in 59 BC, the Senate named Ariovistus a friend of the people of Rome to pacify him and keep him in check.
So one thing interesting too is I can't remember the name of the exact name of the area they just mentioned, trans something Gaul. Anyway, that area, I'm pretty sure, is one of the three regions that Caesar in 58 BC, the next year, was named governor of.
Ariovistus used that time to consolidate his position. After helping the Sequani, he demanded a third of their lands as payment. The Sequani gave in, and Ariovistus began moving more of his people across the Rhine to settle in this new land. By 58 BC, as many as 120,000 Suebi had now crossed the Rhine and made their home in Gaul. Furthermore, Ariovistus was demanding more Sequani territory in order to settle an extra 24,000 Germans and had been taking hostages in order to keep the Sequani and Aedui obedient. Something had to be done. Following his victory over the Helvetii, Caesar had taken some time to rest in Bibracte. Whilst encamped there, he was visited by a council of Gallic leaders and diplomats, led by Diviciacus. They complimented Caesar on his victory and implored him to intervene in the situation, pointing out,
as a couple people in my comments pointed out, although Caesar did get victory, the numbers that we know today as victory, like how many he lost, how many the enemy lost, things like that, they were only reported back by Caesar, and they're widely received. They're widely believed, I guess, nowadays as not being true numbers.
that if the
Like the number
Germans
of troops.
continued their conquests, soon the Suebi would be directly bordering Roman territory. Caesar, again, was happy to oblige. As Ariovistus was a friend of Rome, however, Caesar could not immediately go to war. Instead, Caesar first invited Ariovistus to meet him, which was declined. Then he sent a diplomat to Ariovistus, asking him to return the Gallic hostages he had taken and to stop any hostilities. Caesar reminded him that if he were to comply, the Romans would still consider him a friend of Rome and not take any action against him. This was a good deal for Ariovistus. He'd be allowed to keep the lands he had already taken from the Sequani without a fight. Instead of accepting the terms, Ariovistus doubled down and sent a message back to Caesar saying that if the Romans could conquer where and how they liked, so could he. At the same time, the 24,000 new Germans who had crossed the Rhine were allowed to raise and pillage the Gallic lands as they pleased, with more Germans preparing to cross the river to join Ariovistus. Caesar now had his justification, as he had a legal decree from the Senate to protect Rome's Gallic allies. He could justify that the Suebi were threatening Rome's borders, and Ariovistus had forfeited his status as a friend of Rome by continuing to pillage the land of Rome's allies. Yet again, Caesar had the chance to market himself as the saviour of Gaul. Gathering his 6 legions, roughly 30,000 men, Caesar set out on the warpath. Both Ariovistus and Caesar recognized the importance of Vesontio, the largest town in the Sequani territories. Well fortified and well supplied, it would be crucial to the war effort. Both forces began marching to the town. However, the Romans, marching day and night, were able to get there first. Caesar rested there briefly while supplying the legions. But as they rested,
You know, the more that I watch about Caesar and everything, Julius Caesar, the more I realize he wasn't the best guy. He just kind of manipulated, only did good things if it suited him. He didn't seem like that great of a guy. But he knew how to work the system and knew how to gain public favor. And it worked out, but God, he seemed kind of like an asshole, honestly.
rumours began reaching the men of the strength and ferocity of the Germans. Even some of Caesar's officers began having their doubts, and it almost seemed as if Caesar would have a mutiny on his hands. Caesar was, however, able to restore order by insisting that he would face Ariovistus with just his most trusted 10th Legion if none others would follow. This inspired a fanatical loyalty in the 10th Legion, whilst the others, motivated by shame at being thought of as cowards, rallied, and the legions began to march out to meet the Suebi. Ariovistus, impressed with the speed at which the Romans had been able to move and take Vesontio, sent messages to Caesar asking for a meeting, with only some cavalry allowed as bodyguards, at the place called Vosges in modern-day Alsace. Caesar agreed, but the meeting did not go well, with both generals reiterating their positions. Ariovistus even went so far as to say that if he were to kill Caesar, there would be many in Rome that would be grateful, showing that he knew what the political situation in Rome was. Negotiations broke down after this.
That really plays a big part into like your psychological warfare, you know? It's definitely a smart move, and it's really, really important, especially back in the day, to know your enemy.
And the cavalry on both sides had a minor skirmish before retreating back to their respective camps. A few days later, Ariovistus asked for another meeting. Caesar, sensing a trap, sent his translators. This was just as well, as Ariovistus promptly captured the two and even considered burning them alive. With his plan to capture Caesar having failed, Ariovistus instead moved to battle. His army was composed of 6,000 cavalry, 16,000 light infantry, and the rest heavier infantry for a total of around 30 to 40,000 men. Taking Caesar by surprise, Ariovistus marched his force quickly behind Caesar's position and set up camp, cutting off the Romans from their supply lines. For 5 days, Caesar drew out his army in battle formation, willing to give battle, but Ariovistus was content to wait and strangle Caesar's supply line, only engaging in cavalry skirmishes. The Suebi
On top of that, sorry, it's starting to fade right now, but on top of that, Caesar's backed up to a river, which makes it a little tougher. Although they can make a bridge pretty quick. We know that. But he was it Ariovistus? He already has like a mountain top, a hill that he's on, so he's got height advantage as well.
cavalry fought in a unique fashion. For every horseman, there was an infantryman mixed into their formation. These men were lightly armed in order to keep up with the cavalry, and together provided a flexible and difficult force to handle, and the Roman cavalry got the worst of the fighting. Caesar, knowing that he would have to do something to break the stalemate or else risk being starved out, formed his legions into 3 lines. He marched this force past the Suebi position and ordered the 3rd line to begin construction of a 2nd camp, whilst the first 2 lines formed up to defend them. Ariovistus sent all of his light infantry and cavalry to harass the legionaries, but seemed reluctant to commit his entire force, and so they were easily held off by the Romans.
That makes sense.
With the 2nd camp complete, Caesar left 2 legions and part of his auxiliaries to defend it, whilst his other 4 legions returned to the main camp. Realizing that Caesar would now be able to use this 2nd camp to reconnect with his supply line,
that makes a lot of sense.
Ariovistus sent part of his army to attack this second.
What gets me is, I know this map's not perfect, but they really couldn't have sent supplies kind of this way and along here. I guess anything going through here before this camp was set up probably would have been taken by Ariovistus. You'd think that Ariovistus would have taken this mountain, though, instead, if this is an accurate depiction, you know?
Second camp. The fighting was tough, lasting from midday into the evening, but eventually the Romans were able to repel the attack and even took some prisoners. Upon questioning these Suebi, Caesar learnt that Ariovistus had apparently been told by his priests not to commit his army until after the new moon, which was why he had not used his whole army to prevent the legions constructing their 2nd camp.
I wonder how he found that out.
This,
I guess probably spies or something. You know, how do you find out information like that? And if you have spies, they have to speak the language, right? So these are German-based people. You have to speak German. It's just, God, that job would suck.
Caesar decided to go on the offensive. Leaving a small garrison in each camp, Caesar formed his 6 legions into a triple-axis formation with his cavalry in reserve and marched on the Suebi camp. The Germans came out to meet him, forming their wagons and baggage train into a semicircle behind them, their women standing on them urging the men on. Noticing that the German left flank was slightly weaker, Caesar positioned himself opposite on the Roman right and gave the order for his men to charge. But as he did, the Suebi also charged. Their assault was so fast and surprising that the Romans had to drop their pila before they could even throw them, drawing their sword.
I've got a question, and maybe I'm getting this backwards, but do you really think that he put himself on the weaker section, or do you think it had the same type of thing as the battle strategies of Macedonia? When I watched the Alexander the Great series, maybe I'm getting it backwards, but I thought that that the leader always put themselves on the right side of their troops. That was the most honorable spot to fight or something like that. So it makes sense that he'd be over here. Unless I'm getting it backwards and they always did the left. But during Macedonian times and with Alexander the Great and everything, I think that's the case, you know?
And fighting in hand-to-hand combat. The Germans managed to form a shield wall, and neither side seemed able to gain an upper hand. Having been unable to throw their javelins before charging, the Romans struggled to break the shield wall as easily as they had at the Battle of Bibracte. After some hard fighting, the Roman right, led by Caesar, started to push back the German left. However, the Suebi on the right outnumbered their Roman opponents and were starting to get the upper hand. The Roman cavalry, led by the son of Triumvir Marcus Licinius Crassus, Publius, had not yet engaged in the battle, and from his position he could see the Roman left starting to crumble. Using his own initiative, Crassus led the third line, which had been kept in reserve, to support the flank, arriving just in time to avoid a disaster.
Very smart.
With their left flank broken and their right now under severe pressure, the Suebi army broke and ran. It is not known how many people died in this battle, but the Germans attempting to retreat through their wagons were said to have been packed so tightly that the dead could not even fall over.
Wow.
The entire Suebi force, including Ariovistus, fled back across the Rhine, pursued by the Roman cavalry.
I wonder if Ariovistus is going to come back, because he made it out alive. I wonder if he's going to be something you hear about in the future.
Caesar had won 2 important campaigns in one season. For now, he left Labienus to winter with the legions in Sequani territory, whilst he attended to his governing duties in Cisalpine Gaul. But by wintering his legions in Gallic territory, Caesar was making a point. This was beginning to look less like intervention and more like occupation. With the Germanic threat dealt with, Caesar would be able to turn his attention to Gaul proper. Our series on the Gallic Wars is just starting, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and
On that note, make sure you're subscribed to my channel as well. They make a good point though, you know? At a certain point when you leave your troops there and things like that, it's not necessarily you're helping them out, you're not defending them anymore. At a certain point, you're just kind of taking over, you're occupying, you know? And it's definitely a rough point that it seems like Caesar's definitely making. We'll see where it goes from here, but I swear I didn't learn any of this in middle school. Kind of seemed like Caesar was other than, you know, the people that didn't like him and stabbed him and killed him, pretty overall loved person, but he seems very conniving and very, very intelligent for sure. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Till next time, to stay society, and I'm out.